welcome to the Big Breakdown podcast where we are reviewing our last episode with Sergio Harrison. Great interview with Sergio, I thought. Not to blow our own trumpets, but I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, it was, yeah, wow. I every time I speak, I was speaking to Sergio a couple of times, and it's just I never feel as if I want to stop, and I could have carried on talking to Sergio about coaching for another 3, 4 hours. It was just the mind that man has got around his understanding of coaching and what he's and the experiences that he's had in his, not just in other environments observing, but his own environments. For him as a coach, coaching basketball was interesting enough.
I think that's one of the things with Sergio, though, and we spoke about it in the intro of the episode. How he's a practitioner first, so you get a lot of these academic papers are done by, and I mean this with all due respect, by some people that have never actually been at the coalface and done coaching before. But because Sergio's been out there and actually put experience stuff, the research that he then conducts is what's going to help him benefit from learning about this. And like the level he got to with basketball coaching and the stuff he's doing now around promoting some of this, the works he's done with UEFA, with Nike, with the iCoach Kids setup, it's all embedding a lot of the key concepts that he's sort of learned, I suppose, through the research that he's conducted. I think that's why when you hear him speak, you can end up sitting with him for hours because you can relate to everything that he's speaking about.
Definitely. Definitely, I think there's so many big takeaways that I've already taken away from that conversation, and yeah, like I said, every time I've spoken to him, I just wanted more and more and more. And like for me, in that last episode, one of the ones that massively stood out is actually that it's not actually coaching; it's getting the balance between coaching and not coaching, and how he shared his experience of him being as a young coach and progressing through the ranks with GB basketball, and actually he began to become disinterested in it. He actually now enjoys coaching the kids again at his local club in Manchester, because he's able to get that balance between coaching, lecturing, writing papers, and spending time with the family. I think that was really quite profound, and actually a lot of coaches from all levels of the sports, in all lots of different levels of sports, in lots of different domains, can really begin to take that actually sport and coaching isn't the be all and end all in life, and we can make sure we get that balance.
Yeah, definitely. Because the key themes for the paper around that vision, that people, environment, and coaching philosophy. But like you say, one of the things that Sergio touched on with the people that he interviewed, and I mean, he mentioned it to me before. And we talked about in the episode about how the wife of one of the coaches said to him, "Are you interviewing my winter husband or my summer husband?" And he then delved into that a little bit more about that self-care, that taking time for yourself. And I think with everything in coaching, we can get distracted by, the what coaching is. You delve straight in. You're looking after different people. You're constantly thinking about what you need to do next. But actually, you need to take that time out as well. So even if you have got all these different things of vision, people, environment, you've got to take that time for yourself. And he spoke about how he likes to go fishing, which I didn't know. He likes to go then running as well, but without headphones in, so he can clearly spend that as time for just himself. And I thought that was quite a powerful thing for any coach at any level. Really, is try not to let it take over everything. Actually, take some step back, reflect on you, and that will then drive standards and your ability to perform on field or on court or wherever you coach.
Oh yeah, because definitely, because coaching can quickly become a 24/7, 365 job if we're not careful. Because when you're dealing with athletes, they might just drop you a message. They might get a message and pop in their head, and that's 5 minutes dropping the message. But if you're managing a team, that could be 30, 40 of them all across the day, and then that's very time consuming. So making sure you've got time to yourself was like, yeah, it was very interesting. It was very interesting.
Was there anything else that stood out in the episode for him?
I think the other one that massively kind of stood out is making sure that we have a purpose. There's a reason behind everything we do as coaches, and actually getting the players. This goes back to what we were talking about in terms of people, vision, and environment, and it kind of links the three together. Is the purpose that overrides it all. You talked about the coach that used to get a £5 note out and point at the Queen and said, "That's who you're working for." That was for that coach. That was the sole purpose of working within, that I'm assuming that GB setup. And what's really important for all coaches at once again at all levels is right. What purpose can I and all my participants and the club in general get behind for us to get our intended outcomes and be successful in whatever we want to be?
Yeah, definitely. And I think Sergio did touch on the fact that the coaches that they have in are quite lucky to some extent because they've got great athletes with them. But that doesn't mean that you don't sort of neglect the other important things that build a thriving team. I think that was the key thing that sort of linked to that is how do you get them the people that are within that? Because whatever coaching role you're in, you've got other people you need to manage, medical staff, assistant coaches, even managing up of committee members if you're at a community club, for example, sponsors, depending on the role that you've got. So by having that alignment of all these different things, of that vision, is everyone on the same tracks, everyone going in the same direction to meet that shared goal. And I think that again is something that you can take into not only sports coaching environments, but your day-to-day life, depending on what role you've got outside of coaching if it's not your full-time gig. One of the things that I sort of really enjoyed chatting to him about was this notion of driven benevolence, and how you've got to find that balance again between being driven and determined, of having them unwavering high standards, that high sense of purpose, the desire to win, because everyone wants to win. The beer tastes nicer after you've won, for starters. You end up doing it with that all-in commitment, but finding that balance between being people first, actually seeking to understand their view, and being able to flush the toilet and move on if it all goes to shit.
Oh, yeah, and that goes back to on that episode, I brought up, I mentioned Mauricio Pochettino and what he talks about in terms of dealing with dealing with Tottenham players. That he's dealing with players, he's dealing with people that just so happen to be football players. And we want to create those competitive environments because that's where we thrive. We love the challenge. It's that competitiveness is a human trait in which we all have in us. Where yes, it might vary, but if you're in sport and you participate in sport, that's because realistically you want to win. And like you said, beer does taste sweeter when you win. And yeah, it's interesting because it's a balancing act. And a question for you then: have you got any examples in which you think you've not got that balancing act?
Probably now, in all honesty. So we've started pre-season at Beckett, and because of COVID and the lads that have left, you can see that now there's the players that we've got in at second year, so they've done a COVID year, are that little bit behind in terms of their development, both physically, tactically, mentally, and socially with each other. There's not that connection, not that trust. So it's now trying to balance that. I mean, you know what it's like within that first, second team environment. We're trying to build that second team. Is you have that high standard because that is what you're expecting them to get to in order to participate in Book Super Rugby. But actually, at the moment, a lot of them lads need real support to get them up to actually be able to maintain that high standard. So it's sort of having to take that step back and realising, you can't be overly harsh on them to start with because their level of understanding is they're a year behind. So it's having that compassion, that people first, that actually seek to understand what do they know, where are they weak, where can we carry on, and find that balance of managing that expectation for the senior stuff, but actually we need to drive these lads up to get them better.
Yeah.
Not to worry about what impact that's going to have by the 6th of October when we play Newcastle University first team at home.
Yeah, and I think and then this leads on really nicely into something else that we touched on with Sergio, and that's that idea around cultural leaders. For us as coaches, it's really hard to manage a squad of 30 or 40 on our own. So it's important that we empower players to be able to to become leaders and drive the culture that you're trying to share across. And that's probably one of the harder things that I've had to, me personally, I think I face as a coach. And and I think it's important that we test whether we're doing that successfully. And I really like the way that Sergio says he tests his cultural leaders by turning up late to a session and hiding in the office so he can see the players on the basketball court and see what they do and see which players begin to take a lead when it comes 10 past 6 when they should have started at 6. Which one of those players is going to put their hands up and say, right, the session should have started by now. Let's do something. And I think that's a really good way of testing where you are as a marker in terms of, right, these players I've identified as leaders, but do they step up when when they need to?
Definitely, and that is something that before we start the season that I was actually thinking about doing. We need to work out from that third year group who's going to emerge as their natural leaders. Because again, they've had a year out. So I've only seen them from when they were first year, and the lads that we'll be talking about, because you sort of helped push them in that direction to end up sort of with me in the second team. And it'll be interesting to see now who's going to be able to take on that ownership and responsibility to be a leader in that group. So that might be something I look to adopt myself, and I'll update you on what happens as and when. But I think there's a lot of questions that coaches can go away and ask themselves after that episode. I've certainly taken a few. What's a bit ridiculous is we've got some fantastic coaches to come in now and really talk about each individual section of it, which I think will just add more meat to the bones of what we've just started to scratch the surface of with Sergio.
Yeah, definitely, and it's we've already got a bit of a head start in terms of the journey that this season is going to take us on, and I am genuinely very, 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 very excited for it because we have had some stellar guests and some stellar conversations, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys as listeners have taken away from it and question. We'd love to have some questions. If you disagree or you have a change of ideas on anything we're going to discuss in this next season, please feel free to hop on our socials on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and share your thoughts and challenges if you do have a change in philosophy or a change in mindset. We love to listen, we love to engage, we love to change. I love people challenging my thoughts. I'm always up for a challenge, aren't I, Chris?
Definitely. Yeah, send us on, and we'll try and answer as many of the questions in our review of the season in episode 10 as well. So there we have it, episode 1, season 2, done. We are back in 2 weeks' time. We have another guest on to delve in a little bit more detail into this notion of key attributes of serial winning coaches. Charlie's got all the details of our socials at the end. Drop us a message, let us know what you think, and we'll see you next time.